Welcome to the Disrupt Your Career podcast, brought to you by Claire Harbour
and Antoine Tirard. We're passionate about helping everyone find fulfillment in their work life.
We believe that big, messy, uncharted career changes are inevitable, and it's up to you to decide.
Will you take control and disrupt, or allow yourself to be disrupted?
We wrote the book about it, and now we share here our conversations with other thinkers in this crucial area.
Settle down and get ready to listen to this dose of wisdom.
So I'm delighted to be welcoming back Paolo Gallo, who spoke with me several years back now on the full Disrupt Your Career podcast. And he's here today to talk about his newly published book, The 7 Games of Leadership, the subtitle of which is Navigating the Inner Journey of Leaders. So Paolo, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me.
Delighted to come back after, indeed, quite a lot of time since my last book.
It is a long time. Anyway, what inspired you to write this book? I'm wondering if you had a specific audience or group of people in mind when you were writing it, and what fundamentally led you to go in this direction rather than any other?
Pretty much every Saturday when we have a bit of time to have a breakfast without rushing to our respective engagement and my daughter to school, I always ask my daughter, what did you learn this week? About a couple of years ago, and my daughter, that she's now 17, she asked me, but Daddy, you've been working for 30 plus years. What did you learn? Well, that question was quite a powerful one. I asked a couple of weeks to think about. And one day I took her for pizza. I explained what I've learned in my career. Now as executive coach, but working in different places. She listened, she asked a lot of questions. Then a few days later, I found a yellow post-it like this one on my computer. And she said, Daddy, I love the story. Why don't you write a book about it? I decided to write this book to answer to my daughter. But fundamentally, what I told her was, listen, I met, 1,000 of people in my life. And a lot of them from interviews. I was head of HR for 3 different organizations in my life, EBRD in London, World Bank, and the World Economic Forum. As a coach, I also worked and coached several hundred people. You may say that I had thousands of meetings, but then in reality, I didn't have thousands of different meetings. I have 100 of times the same conversation because I noticed that people are struggling with similar issues, regardless of any other variables. You can be from Uganda or Thailand or Italy, or you can be in a luxury company or banking or consulting. We all have similar thoughts, challenges to deal with. And so one day I literally, with the same colored post-its, I said, okay, which challenges did I see? What did I learn by listening all these people over the last 30 years? And they became 7 colors on the floor, literally. And I said, okay, this group of people had this challenge. This group of people had this challenge. And all of a sudden, I visualized that there was a journey that everybody goes through. This is Carl Jung adult development. It's not something that I invented. I thought, okay, these people have these different phases in their life, but some of them fail to understand, how the rules of this specific phase. And so I call it games. The idea of the book is fundamentally help the reader to find out where you are in your own journey. Okay, how do you understand to progress? And the progression that I'm referring to, I'm not referring to becoming from a manager to vice president to CEO. It's really how you develop yourself as a human being. So this book is more focused on personal development, which I believe is a theme that everybody is interested. So this is not a result of a market analysis, but people that are genuinely keen to understand more about how to continue growing personally and also professionally. I think it could be a helpful book to read.
Beautiful. That's such a wonderful Genesis story. And I love the fact that you take the Jungian approach to the journey, the quest, whatever. Tell us a little bit more, if you can, about the key concepts and methods and insights that you used and that emerged in the book. And if you can summarize them, obviously we want the listeners also to go and buy your book, and we'll include a link to that in the notes. But if you could just give some crystallized ideas from the book, that would be super helpful.
The way I see, before you embark in a journey, you need to understand the terrain that you're going venturing, no? So the first couple of chapters is a preparatory warm-up to understand the journey. And I try to explain what are the 7 mega trends that are impacting who we are. And sadly, one of them, which I call geopolitics, is heavily impacting in our life. But of course, artificial intelligence or climate change also big element of it. And then also I invite the reader to challenge some of the assumptions that you have done in your life, because assumptions are a bit of prisons because you think in that way all the time. And I think it's important at times to take one step back and to say, do I still believe that this is valid in my own journey? No. So the first couple of chapters, if you want, is a warm-up exercise to prepare the terrain. And then you have these 7 games. I wanted to give one word per each game that hopefully helps the reader to remember and to crystallize the key feature of that game. The first one is the inner game. And the inner game is the capacity to, following self-reflection and analysis and maybe some coaching assessment that I provide in the book, to understand, okay, what are you good at? What is your calling? And this is not about a profession or a sector or an organizational chart. It's really something that's meaningful to you, and how do you offer your talent to whatever organization, whatever system you're part of it. No? Once you master that element, you go to the next phase. I call it the better game. And the better game is the awareness that you need to master whatever game you're playing. No? You need to improve. You need to be pretty good in what you're doing. So you cannot rely exclusively on intuition and talent, but you really have to work harder to achieve a level of mastery and proficiency in whatever profession you choose. I noticed that quite a lot of people stop here in that journey, okay? So they realize what they wanted to do and they became pretty good in doing it. They stop there in their own journey, no? Well, the next phase, I call it the outer and the caring game, is fundamentally outer is develop contextual intelligence, so the capacity to connect the dots, and so the capacity to open the windows to understand what else is there other than your sector, your job, your role, and have also this mindset of intellectual curiosity, not to become an expert on everything, but at least to be aware there are other elements that can impact your role and how you understand them. And the caring game is, I know it sounds a bit romantic, no, but it's not meant in that way, but it's fundamentally like, do you care about other people? Are you able to develop trust and collaboration with other guys, no? Or you just compete with people? And some people are inclined to collaborate, and some people, they don't see collaboration as an option. They just want to compete, which is a missed opportunity. So when you go through this phase, you go to the fourth one, which I think is actually quite the center of the book, which I call the crisis game. And the crisis game is the capacity to pause for a second, understand what is coming next, which is, I call it the reinvention game. And crisis is not a negative word. In Greek, it means a necessity of a decision, which is fundamentally usually occurs in your mid to late 40s, early 50s, where, if I can use a soccer analogy, you start to think that if you want to play the second half of the game the way you play the first half. And usually the answer is not really, okay? When you come to this level of awareness, then what next? And in this book, I try to explain that in my own experience, I noticed there are 4 kinds of responses that people do. 3 of them, sadly, not the right one. One of them is the correct one. And I try to understand and to help the reader to say, yeah, don't go in that direction. Stay on the front. That you will find your way forward. If you find your way forward, you enter to the reinvention game. And reinvention is not changing your picture on LinkedIn. It's something much more profound. And then you go to the what I call the revolution game. And I wasn't decided between revolution and legacy, but legacy to me is something more related to personal legacy, while revolution is more related to you leave something for other people. So you're not necessarily benefiting you or maybe the people in your family, but leaving a sustained change that is meaningful and positive for other people, your community, your country, your company, your family. It doesn't really matter, but there is an element of altruistic approach because you stop focusing exclusively on yourself. And the last, I call it the let it go game. And let it go game is the capacity to pass the torch to somebody else, to shift away, but not because you become cynical or lazy, but because you have developed a capacity rather than dependency with others and all of a sudden you're no longer needed, which is to me the ultimate sign that you've done a good job, including with our kids.
Definitely.
When you see your kids walking, taking independent decisions, being adults, you know that you've done a good job. But you're still there when they are in the mid-30s, helping them. You could have done a better job. So let it go should not be seen as the beginning of decline, but actually the ultimate sign of wisdom.
That's beautiful. What a wonderful set of games and pictures to be imagining. Is there a particularly emblematic case study that you could share with us? Sort of, if you could, I'm assuming, having not read the whole of the book, that there are some great stories and case studies within the book. Is there one that would really show off well one or several of these phases being done well?
I counted actually yesterday because somebody asked me this question as 232 quotes. And to me, a quote is also pay homage to people that have contributed to shape the way I think. It could be a poet, it could be an author, it could be a musician, it could be a philosopher. No, I explain things through stories. I mean, the conceptual part is probably 15 or maybe 10-15% of the book. The rest are stories because people do remember stories. No, one story that I share is how you manage a transformation, which is a moment of crisis and then reinvention. Because I'm trying to explain the difference between managing change and managing transformation. Change is something that occurs outside you. Okay, let's say that you move to another country, you divorce, you move house, you buy a new car, or whatever it is. You have to adapt to a change of external circumstances. Okay. Think about COVID, for example. No, of course, we have to adapt to a very dramatic situation for close to 2 years. Okay, but you're still the same person. You just have to adapt. Again, it's not easy. And there is a discipline called change management, which is taught at university, which is not necessarily easy. And it's a game of adaptation, but you remain who you are. Okay. However, transformation is something different. And I refer to Roman God, because when the Romans conquered Greece, they fundamentally cut and paste Greek gods, with the exception of one that is called Janus. In Italian, it's called Giano Bifronte. And he has two faces. One, the wise one, with the face of a, let's say, relatively old individual that represents gravitas. And gravitas means judgment, the capacity to reflect, wisdom. And then the second face is a young face that the Romans call Juventus, which is not only a soccer team, but means energy, positiveness, and optimism. And so the Romans have give us, I think, this wonderful symbolic God to say, listen, when you're managing a transformation, which is different than change, you need to have the experience of gravitas and the energy of Juventus. So I'm using this analogy to say whatever you've learned is still very relevant. Don't throw it away, but have also an attitude of optimism and energy and positiveness in whatever transformation you're going through. And as a coach, I know that transformation can last up to 2 years, usually 1 to 1.5 years, from the moment where you realize that certain modalities of living are no longer congruent with who you become, and all the modalities that are probably more aligned with who you want to be. And managing this transformation is not easy. I also use all the stories that help the reader to embrace with courage and with optimism a critical moment of everybody's life that occurs with everybody, regardless of financial or gender or sexual preference or political views that everybody has sometimes in their life.
Indeed, there is this universal need for stepping back, pausing, reflecting, and deciding how to change. That's absolutely for certain. Paolo, this is a conversation that I know we could continue for hours and hours, but I'm going to draw an end to it here, thanking you very much for bringing not just your fundamental wisdom, but also this worked through, expressed and written wisdom that I highly encourage all of our readers to go and find on all the different book buying sites and to inwardly digest. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Claire, for inviting me again.
We hope you enjoyed hearing from this month's guest as much as we did.
Do go and check out our work on disrupt-your-career.com and come back soon. Thank you.